Welcome to the 2D Web Solution Show, the podcast that provides freelancers who are wanting to make more with WordPress, the solutions to create a plan, take action, and experience success. And now, here are Arelthia Phillips and Carron with their next 2D Web Solutions episode.
Hey there, everybody. How are you today? Thank you for being here for episode 13 of 2D Web Solutions.
Today's topic is the entrepreneur's social life.
So this is an awesome topic that we have had visitors ask us about for quite some time, Arelthia, and I'm really excited to talk about it. There were so many people who put input in when we asked this question originally and all of that. So let's dive right in and get to the first question. Why is a social life important to an entrepreneur?
You know, this question about why the social life is important goes back to the episode we did on the hierarchy of needs. You know, the social life, just being able to interact with others helps to keep us moving forward so that we don't get stuck in that rut of, oh, I'm so alone.
That's amazing you say that, because interestingly, my answer is very, very similar to that. And it's, as a human being, we were not designed to be alone or to survive alone. So there's certain things that can only be absorbed as a result of being interactive with other people and other human beings. Things like love and support and encouragement and feedback, both good and bad feedback. And when we interact with people, it gives us that opportunity to be able to learn and grow. And without it, I don't think we can.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting that you bring up the fact that having a social life is important to you being able to learn and grow, because when you think about your social life, sometimes we tend to think of a social life being separate from work. But sometimes your social life is related to work. Sometimes it's related to fun. But Kerry, my question to you is, how can you balance your work and your fun?
For me, it comes down to priorities and making sure that I set my priorities straight. For me personally, and this is going to differ for everybody, but my personal priorities are God first, family, friends, and then work. So I try to set boundaries to maintain the separation when needed, but I place everything I do with those priorities in mind. How about you?
You know, I think the big point there is that you brought up is the setting of boundaries. And we did a show about this last season, but boundaries are so important. Boundaries determine who you allow to take up your time. Boundaries also can cause you to delegate tasks that you don't have to do to other people, because sometimes even in your personal life, like I don't always have to do the laundry. I can delegate that task to my husband. He can do the laundry sometimes. You know, in business, sometimes we can delegate those tasks to other people to help keep that balance between work and fun, so that, oh, I don't have to always do work. I can go out and have fun sometimes. So it's about, just like you said, with the God, family, friends, and work, it's about finding that mixture that works so that you're not always overwhelmed with everything.
Right. And that brings me to another point. Does the virtual world count as social interaction for you ever, Arelthia?
You know, the virtual world, when I think about it like that, if it wasn't for the virtual world, Kerry, we wouldn't even know each other, because that's where we met, is in the virtual world.
That is true.
You know, it's like interacting with like-minded individuals virtually. That is a social interaction for me. It allows me to not just keep my head down in the code all day, but to get out and talk to other people. A lot of times people that understand me in a way that sometimes the people around me don't understand me, because sometimes it's like I'm speaking a totally different language. But, you know, the virtual world, it really does help me to get like a perspective from people, sometimes outside of my age group, sometimes in different states and countries, stuff that I wouldn't be able to get locally or right here with me. So, I mean, like, how do you feel about the virtual world when it comes to social interaction, Kerry?
Oh, without a doubt, it is the majority of my social interaction. When I first became an entrepreneur and was working from home, my family used to tease me. I had kids living at home at the time. And they used to tease me, like, Mom, you don't have friends. They're just virtual friends. And I'm like, well, they're real people and they are real friends. And once we started, meeting up in different locations and getting together and really socially interacting on a human level, it was just an extension of what started as that virtual relationship. And a lot of times it goes not only for my coworkers and my teammates within my business, but it goes as far as my clients too. My friends are my clients. My clients are my friends. And we have a real working relationship that we developed online, virtual or not. So I do incorporate a lot of fun into my work. And I have work-related social interaction and I have non-work related social interaction. So it goes both ways for me.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up, because when I think about it, I have some clients that I have never met in person. The only way we've interacted have been virtually. Yes, there are some that we've met in person, but there are quite a few, Kerry, that I've never met in person. It's always been like virtually. And sometimes I tend to treat that virtual environment as though it's like personal.
It has to be personal, because if you don't have a relationship, then you really don't have anything at all. It's just words, typed documentation, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. And I think, like, with it being personal, you have to also protect yourself from just allowing anyone from interacting with you virtually as well. Just like we protect, if we're out in public, we wouldn't just talk to just anyone. Right. Virtually, we don't just talk to anyone. Just because you request to get my contact information on Skype does not mean I'm going to give you that information. So that's still, I guess, as you would say, Kerry, it's still keeping with those boundaries.
Yes, absolutely. I'm big on boundaries, for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
For sure. So what do you do for social interaction, Arelthia?
Social interaction for me, whether it's outside of work, for example, outside of work, I attend church regularly. That's an important part of my worship. Local WordPress meetups, local meetups that are not necessarily WordPress, but entrepreneur related meetups, social gatherings, not related to business, just going out and having fun with friends. And then activities with my family, such as like baseball. That's a big thing for us because my son's he's into baseball now. Going to the movies, or even date night with my husband. That's important social interaction with me. It's something I wish I could say that a part of my social life was going to the gym or something. No, these days, that's not part of my social life. Sorry.
I can totally relate to that. I'm right there with you. That is not part of my regular routine, although it should be.
It should be.
It is becoming more and more evident that it needs to be.
Yeah, it's like, that's one of those things that it used to be a part of my life and I used to make time for it. And now it's like, I'm just not motivated for it right now, but I need to, maybe one day, I don't know.
Exactly. A lot of my social interaction outside of work obviously ties directly to doing things with my family. We also have devotional time. And we are a family of road trips. We love taking road trips. My husband and I are Harley riders, so going out on our weekend rides is imperative to our mental state of mind. And it also has a unique connection to our belief system and our Savior. And so it's important for us to make that part of our lives and incorporate that into our lives. But at the same time, I do go off socially and interact with business associates outside without my husband. He chooses not to come along. I typically do invite him, but very rarely will he ever come along. And to be honest, it's probably better that way. So just kind of go with that and keep it at work. And sometimes it can be as simple as taking a day off from my office, picking up my laptop and going and spending the day at a coffee shop and working from a coffee shop, just to have that noise, for lack of a better term, there as well. It's like it's hopefully not too distracting, but it's a bit of a social interaction. There are real people around me. I'm not just talking to the dogs, or like new parents often find out when they have an infant at home. I'm not talking baby talk. So those are some of the things that I do for my social interaction.
So, Kerry, that just brings up our last question. How do you ensure you have a social life as an entrepreneur?
Well, to wrap it up, it comes down to implementing a plan to interact, using my priorities, and applying those priorities to the social interactions.
Okay.
And what do you do, Aletha, for that?
So for me, I plan time to interact with others. That means it goes on my calendar. I use like what's called my velvet rope time, that if you don't meet certain requirements, you don't have access to me during that time. Some people like to call it their fenced off time, but I like to call it my velvet rope time. And oftentimes I power down during those times. Only specific people have access to me, whether it's from my phone or whatever, and I don't check email during that time. That's a definite, and that brings up the point that a lot of times you have to be very careful who you allow into your circles, because some people, they don't have a social life, and so they don't think you should have a social life either. And you have to use your boundaries to protect yourself from those people.
Yes, and that goes, in across all areas of your life. You have to protect yourself, and you have to guard certain areas of your personal life. At the same time, you don't want to come across cold, and you do have to adjust to learning how to set and abide by the boundaries that you set for yourself.
Yes.
Aletha, something that we didn't mention at the beginning of the show is we're actually doing this semi-live today, and we're going to be opening that up to some of our visitors and so on in the future. Do we have any questions that might have come across while this has been going on? And otherwise, let's continue on with closing up our agenda for today.
Okay. All right, I'm looking here. I don't see any questions at this time. Okay, so I think we can keep
going. Good.
That means we're good. All right, so Kerry, what's our action plan for today?
This is good. One of the things we're also changing this year, welcome to season 2, is instead of today's tweet tip, we are going to change it to an action plan. So today's action plan for you is to commit to at least one social event this week and add it to your calendar and attend.
Okay.
So next time, what do we have coming up for next episode?
Our next episode, we're going to talk about business practices and roles. So if you want to know what that's all about, you'll just have to check in next time to see.
I'm glad I didn't say, well, what is this going to be about, Aletha? Tell us more. All righty. Well, before we go, we do want to hear what you think, because what you say really does matter. So we want to know, do you have a social life?
What do you do for social interaction?
And after listening to this episode, what changes do you want to make to your social life or lack of social life?
And what social event do you think you are most likely to add to your calendar this week?
We know that your comments can help us or someone else in the process, so be sure to leave your comments anytime.
All right, guys, and thank you so much for being here.
Now go out and create your plan, take action, and experience your success.
Kerry and Aletha invite you to start your plan by taking this action. Submit your questions by visiting their website and subscribe to their 2D podcast at 2dwebsolutions.com.